All right. Hey, folks. Welcome to the October 8th, 2024 SIG Windows community meeting. This is a recorded meeting, so please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically translates to be nice and kind to everyone. All right, let's get the show rolling. Looking at the agenda, announcement freeze at this week, October 10th. I think it's also at 10 p.m. PST. Right, Mark? Right, James?
Yeah, I just looked that up earlier. It is 7 p.m. PDT Thursday or
Right.
2 a.m. UTC Friday, the 11th.
All right. I will. Which takes us on to the next step, which is to welcome new contributors. I think I recognize everyone I see on the call. If not, I'll give a couple of minutes for folks to speak up. All right. I'm just wondering whether we should discuss the KEPs given we have the deadline coming up. We can come back to my agenda after we discuss the KEPs. So let me move that up. So James, are you doing the CPU and memory affinity, or is it? This is the one I
Yes.
reviewed, I think, last week,
Yes.
right?
So Signode reviewed it. They had some concerns around the memory manager side of it. But I think we've landed at a reasonable agreement where we won't have static policy for the memory manager. The main reason for this is because the semantics of static mean that the NUMA node that was assigned by the memory manager should be the only NUMA node that memory should be used from. So the Windows APIs don't make that guarantee. Essentially, it's going to do the best it can, but it's possible that it could move the memory to a different NUMA node. And there's just nothing we can do about that. So we're going to potentially create a new policy called best effort. And the main thing we're trying to do here is avoid the situation where you have the CPU manager and the memory manager both enabled. The pod gets scheduled, there's plenty of memory on the node, but the memory is split across two NUMA nodes. But Kubelet can detect that there is either enough memory for this thing to be scheduled on a single NUMA node or it doesn't. And so it should be able to kind of detect that thing. And if it's going to be split across the NUMA nodes, then it should not allow it to be scheduled. So or you shouldn't allow it to get started. You shouldn't throw something. So that's the scenario we're trying to capture. I don't think it's going to require, the logic is almost exactly the same on the Windows side as it is on the Linux side. It's just that we can't necessarily say it's guaranteed. That was the thing that they're mostly concerned around. And so I think we're all set there. I'll drop PR in here. And then I got a PRR review yesterday. I responded to all of it. I think we're somebody else did. I think we're all set there. I think there's a little confusion around this KEP isn't changing any of the PRR has already been done for these features, and all of those things have already been decided. So we're just following along with the same decisions that they made. So I just try to make them a little clearer in the PRR, and then call out just that we're adding a new feature flag.
Okay, so it looks like there's no danger of the KEP not making it into this, right?
I'm not sure. I think I got a provisional, looks good to me from Signode this morning.
Okay.
Some of the PRR questions, even though most of it's already been answered, a lot of them have to do with feature enablement and disablement, which we are adding a new feature flag, so we should just double check that that's relevant. Like, but most of it, like most of the bigger questions are, like you said, probably already answered.
Yeah, as far as like upgrade, downgrade, and other things, it's all not applicable because it's node local. It doesn't interact with the scheduler, the controller, or any of the API server or any other nodes. Like, so there's a lot there for either turn it on or turn it off. The only thing is if you turn it on and then turn it off, then turn the kubelet back on, there's a state file and you just have to clear that state file. Otherwise, you won't, you'll get into a bad state.
All right. That sounds good. Do we have anybody here who can speak to node shutdown?
I know the primary kept author message, he's at Microsoft message saying that he had a conflict. This yesterday they got a review from a PRR shadow, and he mentioned when he gets back from his conflict, he's gonna go and look through all of that and address that.
Is is uh is this the PRR review?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
above that EJ said PRR shadow here. And then
Okay.
doing like doing like an
Yeah, I see it.
review. So it still needs somebody like the PRR approver to come and take a look after, but we're getting some traction with the PRR team.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so maybe we do have time to talk about the bug that I was wanting to discuss, or the end-to-end test. So I know that the node log testing has not been going on for a while. I have not been able to make much progress on this, mainly because I don't have easy access to an Azure subscription anymore. What I noticed from the last round of tests here is the SSH connections are not going through now. No, this is one of the older tests. Let me get to. Yeah, so this is the issues that I have been seeing. Um, right, I'm a bit. Oh, this is actually taking us to the whole test. Let me see if I can just get this one. So James and Mark. All right, okay. This will tell me at least what the node log stuff is. But it looks like a lot of the alpha features are just basically failing, right? Yeah, so this is the one that I know is broken because somehow the username is not getting plugged in. Sorry, the node is not getting plugged in. And I got it working the last iteration with the older Azure subscription. Not sure what's going wrong here. And I don't know if this is somehow tangentially connected to the general alpha end-to-end test failing.
I don't know without having to look into that. So
Because I can go and look at my old PRs, but there was a way that this was getting automatically filled in, like the server that I needed to hit. The work I did actually was to make sure that the username and all that was correct. And I did most of the work in that Windows, test repo itself. So I don't know if something to do with the new subscription has to get reflected there. I have no idea. I'm a bit in the dark here.
Yeah, I don't know how that name gets filled. If you can point us at the old PRs, that might enlighten us a
Yeah,
little bit.
once I get off the
not
call,
sure.
I can point you folks at the OPRs and we can maybe discuss on Slack how to move forward with this. Yeah, because I no longer have like an easy way to like test on Azure anymore, unfortunately. I know that, I mean, worst case, we could just disable the test that require SSH, which would be unfortunate, but at least the other tests are running and passing. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's
if you,
just in this configuration somewhere.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because I think if I remember correctly, this just started failing when we cut over to the new
Yep.
community subscription. So
In fact, when you cut over, everything was failing, and then some started passing now after you did more fixes. So now the only one that's failing is the one that requires SSH connection. So, must be hopefully an easy fix. And there's also this test that's failing, James, which is to do with the Windows volume test. This one I don't know anything about. I just know that the overall test is failing because of this and the no-log one.
This is only failing for the alpha.
Yeah.
And we're running this not for the alpha features?
I don't know that, Mark. I do know that we're running this in alpha. I looked at the config and yeah, we are running this.
Yeah.
It should have read-only permissions on empty dir. It seems like this command is somehow failing with an access denied, which seems like the right thing to happen, right?
It depends on the test, on how it's made.
Mhm.
For example,
see.
if I would make that test, I would first assert that you are normally able to write in NetReader, for example, and afterwards in a read-only that you're not able to. But I'm not sure. It might be possible to be like how I said in the test itself, but can you expand the lines a bit? Maybe we have additional I think we have there wait a second step verifying that pod can write to a volume with read-write access line 747.
this test is passing on main, so it must be a configuration.
So basically I think it is exactly how I said that. First it asserts that it should be able to write probably in an empty dir directory first, and then secondly with a read-only whatever volume that it won't be able to. Since that fails, probably the read-only assertion will probably also be false, or false positive. So for some reason, in a non-read-only directory, we are not able to write. That's why it's failing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly, it's running and passing in main branch.
So you think
So-
it's another misconfiguration here, James? Yeah, who knows?
My first thought would be how permissions are going to be set in the kubelet volume directories because those are typically inherited. And it might not be permissive enough for the pods to be able to write in a read-write mtdir directory. That's what I would assume based on this test and its assertions. Again, typically permissions are inherited, though at one point I think we did merge eventually a pull request setting some permissions on mtdir volumes on Windows. I think that one happened last cycle. If you remember that, James, there was another pull request parallel to mine that merged, and I think that was addressing mtdir directories. But I might be mistaken if you remember more than I do.
What? I don't know why that would be failing on this alpha test and not the master branch, or like the non-alpha test though. That's what I'm breaking my head around.
Yeah, either way, indeed, it shouldn't. And at the very least, probably if we do set the permissions on mtdir directory, it shouldn't have happened either way, even if there was some sort of misconfiguration on the node side itself. I mean, that was the whole purpose of the pull request, again, if I'm not mistaken. So
Well,
two things probably, either misconfiguration, either or and the permission settings is not exactly right.
so I think I have another question is, why is this test being run in alpha if it's already if it's running in the regular, I don't know, production tests? Do
It's
we
probably
need this
the
test in alpha?
regexes. It's probably the regexes which are set for the test run. It's probably that we're running SIG Windows tests, and this has the SIG Windows tag basically. So it stands to reason for us to run those tests since we know it is in our yard, to say so.
Yeah, but why do we run them? Like maybe we should fix the regex to not run non-alpha tests here, right? We just want this to run the alpha test, I thought.
I think we told it to run, we told it to run all of the tests that are explicitly labeled SIG Windows plus the alpha
Oh, I
tests
see.
that we pick.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, and I think Claudio was saying this must have so like SIG Windows in it, or advertises a SIG Windows specific test.
Yeah, it has a SIG Windows tag in its name, as you can see.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think that's more to make sure that we don't break the SIG Windows stuff during this.
During an alpha run. Okay.
Yeah. Still an interesting failure. Something that we should probably make note of. It's something that might impact other users as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there is an issue open for it, except it
Okay.
sort of captures both what do I call it? Captures both node log query and this one. So yeah, I think this is James showing us how the mtdir is working here. So I guess we need to look at, is there any configuration changes across how the test is being run in alpha versus how it's being run in regular prod.
Yeah, I think that's probably the
let me see if I can take a look, but it's all I can do since I can't actually run some of these tests against a cluster. But as I'm pulling up PRs for my thing, I'll see if I can easily spot a difference. I'll start a thread on Slack.
Since we're also on the topic of file permissions and so on, and maybe helping us identify false positives in those cases. There is a set of MTDIR conformance tests which we currently skip on Windows, since file permissions settings was not really a thing for us until last cycle, I think. We should probably look into enabling those and see if we do or can actually pass them with the things we've recently done. I think it would be useful and might also help us prevent issues like this.
Yeah, I think we need to update the. I think, if I remember correctly, there was a script that was in one of the container images that just checked to see if we were on Windows, and then we just returned like a default file permission. So we need to update that, but we can, yeah, just work on improving that.
Yeah, not exactly sure where that is, but I do know that basically those tests are using the mount test subcommand from Agnost, and it should actually return the file permissions for a file if needed. Now, might be different on what exactly what and where and how things are set, since it's not really a 100% agreement on what file permissions are supposed to be on Windows when compared to Linux, especially since it's a lot more complex on Windows, especially with how fine-grained it is. But I don't know. It's gonna be probably a more difficult thing to tackle and figure out, I think.
Agree. Yeah, maybe we can devote more time to that after enhancements like discussions on how we want to do that and where the work is after enhancements freeze.
Yeah,
So, Claudio, maybe you bring this topic up again, post enhancement freeze, maybe next week, and then
sure.
we can have a further discussion on how to proceed here.
Yeah, I think I do have a very old pull request which was abandoned some time ago for enabling the file permission tests. Didn't go anywhere because I did have the file permissions pull request as well, which never got anywhere in the end. And since that didn't merge, of course, couldn't really merge the file permission tests either. I think at this point I could reopen it and see what happens afterwards. But I would still expect a few things to fail, considering what we've just seen. Plus, there's another subset of tests which we would probably want to adapt to Windows as well. They're typically split into root user and non-root user, which again, some time ago, it's not really what we could have done, but I think we can do basically admin and non-admin user. I think that's pretty much equivalent with whatever the test is trying to assert.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good idea for you to reopen that PR and see what signal you get back, and then we could discuss the kind of signals you're seeing based on that next week.
Yeah, we'll open until then. I think we can probably discuss the results maybe.
Okay. Yep, sounds good. All right, folks, I think we're coming up on time. Just a couple of more minutes left. So Claudio will bring this up next week and we can have a further discussion. And I think action item on my part is to just take a look and post the PRs that I worked on in the past to get the whole SSH thing going with in Azure, and maybe something is missing there. So I'll go and do that sometime today. All right, folks. See you all on Slack.
Thanks. Bye.